Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we are continuing down the path of our understanding of Maisa Mezvuv Achabish, the story of the spider and the fly. And what we've seen so far is that there's three stages to this relationship between Chochmah and Bina. That the fly represents Bina. The fly represents the ability to descend down into the territories of concealment. The spider represents Chachma. Chachma does not want Bina to descend downwards. Chachma is concerned that when Bina descends down, it's going to get stuck in concealment. And not only that, but it's going to misappropriate the lights of Keser. And so ultimately, there is this conflict between Chachma and Bina. Chachma wants to swallow up Bina because it only wants to stay in Atzilus and it does not want to descend down into the territories of concealment. This entire story is about the victory of Bina over Chachma. What's the victory of Bina over Chachma? The victory of Bina over Chachma is the true revelation that comes about only by way of Bina itself. That in truth, Bina is just there to illuminate the depths of Chachma because it serves as the antithesis to the general shape of Chachma, but it's specifically through the descent into the antithesis, into the opposite, that Bina is going to reveal the potency of Chachma, that it has the ability to reveal itself in unity as well. And when Bina goes down and then it comes back up and unifies again with Chachma, what it does is it reveals Panemius of Chachma, which is Panemius of Atik, which is the revelation that Chachma is so lofty that not only can be found above in the realm of Atzilus, but it could also be found down below in the territories of Yeshus and the Yetzer HaRah and constriction and all of the synonyms that we've applied to Bina so far. And we've seen that this relationship, this battle, is going on in three different stations. First, it's the king who has this Suda every year in memory of the victories that he has engaged in and in memory of being victorious over revealing his kingship. And we said that that's the element of Rosh Hashanah. That's the element of the Kibbutz HaGadol, where Bina itself goes down to be mezachich, to clarify the chitzonius of Malchus. And specifically by way of going down into the chitzonius of Malchus, can the true elevation of Malchus back up to its true source, which is Reishad Loas Yada, actually take place. And that's the secret of the tikkun of chitzonius of Malchus, which can only be done by way of Bina, which is the celebration of Rosh Hashanah, Kola Inyan Shalihu Rosh Hashanah. This is the illumination of Rabbi Nachman. And this model of the king and those who were warring against him gets celebrated at this Suda. And then within the Suda itself, there's the celebration, there's the jesters who are making fun of the other nations, and then there's the book that's brought out. And then the king encounters this strange encounter on the book where the spider is trying to swallow up the fly. And then the king falls asleep and he descends down into a dream where he himself is now being chased by small men who come out of a diamond who, like the spider, are trying to swallow up the fly. And in each and every one of these kind of symmetrical models of first and foremost, there's the king in his wakeful reality. Then there's the king falling into the fantasy of the Suda. And then there's the king falling into the dream. On all of these gradations and all of these narrative frames, it's really the same encounter taking place. It's the Pagisha, the battle, the machlokas between Chachma and Bina. And like we said, the fundamental question at the heart of this encounter between Chachma and Bina, which is the descent away from the purity of Atzilus into the impurity and concealment of the worlds of separation, but for the sake of revealing a deeper truth, which is the light of Keser. And so we see that Bina is ultimately going to win out. On Rosh Hashanah, we see the Aliyah of Malchus back up to Reshad Lo Yada, which is the secret of Malchuscha, Malchus Kol Olamim. And that Malchus is only truly refined when it comes about by way of Chitzanias Malchus, which is the Gvuros and the Shorish of Bina. So we see that the whole Inyan of Rosh Hashanah is the revelation that Bina is fundamentally important. And then we see also as the king is looking down at the book and he sees the fly perpetually being protected by the wind, protecting it from the spider, we see again that Bina is being protected by something. And then even within the dream itself, as the king becomes the representation of Bina, is being chased by these individuals who are claiming that if you go into Bina, then God forbid you're going to forget about Chachma, you're going to straight up to Keser, and then Keser becomes Karis, and you're going to forget about everything. And we see in each of these circumstances, there's a protection. What's the thing that's protecting Bina? We said it's the Tzimtzum, it's the Sharash Elyon of the Gvuros, which reveals that in truth, The whole purpose of Bina is to come to reveal to Chachma that it doesn't have shlemus. Chachma left on its own, Chachma in accordance with its perspective in Olam HaAtzilus, can on a certain level come to perceive of itself as shalem, as having grasped the absolute infinitude of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light. Because it doesn't engage with the constriction, it doesn't engage with the awareness of Chasronos and the battle with the Yetzer HaRah, and therefore Chachma, without the joining of Bina, runs the risk of finding itself in a state of perceived perfection. And therefore, the thing that's going to protect Bina and the thing that's going to perpetually remind us of the necessity of descending away from that artificial perfection of Chachma into the actual and the real imperfections of Bina is the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world by way of its tzimtzum. And the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world by way of tzimtzum and contraction is revelatory of the fact that no matter how high up we can go along our spiritual ladders of consciousness, in the end of the day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinite holiness is going to transcend our human graspability of holiness, not because of a deficiency, but because of the fundamental creaturely nature of what it means to be a human being. And Memela, the thing that protects the necessity of Bina, meaning to say the thing that necessitates the descent away from purity into constriction to reveal the fundamental unity of both ends revealed together, is the Tzimtzum itself. And so the king, how did the king win this victory? By understanding the secret of Schoik, by understanding the fact that everything can be nishapech from one place to the other, that v'nahapechu asher yishletu ha'Yehudim hema b'saneim, that light of the Schoik, of the Sarim who are making fun of everything. The Shoresh ha'elyon of the Schoik is Gvura, it's Yitzchak, and that's the Shoresh of the Nitzachon of Rabbeinu on Rosh Hashanah. And then we see in the story of the stage of the fly and the spider that it's the page, the ruach, that's turning the page of the book over. And we explain that that's the Kabbalah of Maharisarug, that's the Shorosh HaElyon of the Tzimtzum, which is the recognition that HaKadosh Baruch Hu could only reveal himself by way of concealment. Kahadin kamsud levushim eneyubei, like the locust whose exoskeleton emerges from within its own self in an autogenetic type of way. And when seen in that lens, the tzimtzum, the ruach paskanit, that ruach that comes and blows the page up and continuously protects the fly, protects bina, protects the necessity of imperfection, guards imperfection. It's specifically the havana of the tzimtzum. And then in the dream within the sefer, the descent into the dimyon, the descent into the territory of bina. So the king wakes up and he's an even diamond in his hand. He has the even, he has malchus, and the guzmaos are coming out of it, and all of these enemies of bina, which are the men of the spider, those who want to claim that Chachma is the only way to go, and that if we run the risk of going into Bina, we're going to forget about the crown, and we're going to take the crown and throw it into the mud. And so that's the third stage. And what's protecting him? A daf comes along and it's continuously protecting him, just like the spider being protected by the fly. So we have a story within a story within a story. First, we have the king sitting at the Suda celebrating the victory, which is the first model of the spider, which are all of those who tried to conquer the king, and the fly, which is the king who's sitting there in celebration of Rosh Hashanah, which is the utilization of the Yetzer HaRah to be mahapechet into a malach kadosh, because zvuv is the element of the Yetzer HaRah, but it's also gematria tov. And then on the secondary level, we have the king looking into the book and seeing this same encounter taking shape within the spider and the fly, that the spider, which is Chachma, is trying to swallow up the fly, just like the enemies of the king are trying to prevent the king from victory. And then the king falls into a sleep, and within the sleep, within the slumber, he himself becomes the expression of Bina, and he's being chased by Anshe Chachma, but he continuously is protected by this thing. And he's screaming, trying to figure out what is it that's protecting me? What is the Sharash HaElyon of the Tzimtzum? What is the Shirash? Which religion is imprinted upon this page? Meaning to say, where is the secret of the Tzimtzum actually coming from that is protecting Bina in each and every one of these circumstances? And now we're going to go into a fourth level of the narrative. And again, we're going to hold cup on all of this. So now the king is in the midst of, he's still in his dream, and the Sarim are clapping, they're trying to awaken the Batisha, they're trying to scream Hamelech, right? They're trying to wake up the Laila Lunadash Nasamelech, but in the depths of the Nasira and the slumber of the king who's encountering this process of Bina severing itself from Chachma in order to return back to Chachma with a newfound intensity and impression. So the king is going into a dream within a dream now. He screams out, Chaval, Chaval, and he falls deeper into a dream. He's being protected. He's trying to understand who's protecting him. He's trying to understand who's protecting him. Zat, the Heilige Rebbe, betoch kach, in the midst of the story, in the midst of his dream, in the midst of being chased by the Anashim of Chachma, who want to swallow up the king of Bina because they're worried about the descent. Ba'ilav har gavoa v'sha'aloto. In the midst of his screaming, a big mountain comes over to him and says to him, Ma'atatzoi kol kach shezezman rav sha'ani yashen. This mountain was asleep for a very long time, and finally it gets woken up by the screams of this king, who's being protected by the daf. And the mountain says to the king, why have you woken me? What are you screaming about? I've been asleep for so long. Nobody's awoken me. Shum davar has not woken me up. Nothing has bothered me. And you woke me up. What woke me up? Says the mountain. Amar lo, the king says to him, V'loy etzak. Should I not scream? They're chasing me. The men of Chachma are chasing me. The men of the spider are chasing me like the spider chases the fly. Should I not be screaming? Shehim kamim alayla hageni. They're getting up to kill me. They're getting up to destroy me. They're getting up to devour Bina. I shouldn't scream? This page has been protecting me. This page, just like the page was protecting the fly. Heishiv lo HaRah, the mountain says to the king in the dream, if this is the page that's protecting you, you don't have to be afraid of anything. Because I've also had many, many enemies. So here we enter into a fourth stage of the narrative. We go from the king and his enemies and the celebration of the Rosh Hashanah kibbutz, and then we go into the place of the spider and the fly, and then we go into the first stage of the dream, which is the king being chased by the men of Chachma, and then we enter into a fourth stage of the dream, which is in the midst of the king being chased, he awakens this big mountain, who comes along and says, how have you woken me up? What have you done to wake me up? And what exactly is going on? The king says to him, listen, this is what's going on. You don't want me to yell? I'm being chased by Chachma, and I'm being protected by this page, by this simsum, by the Sharash Elyon of the Gevuros. And the Har says, if that's the page that's protecting you, then you're going to be fine because that's the page that protects me from all of my enemies. So now we see a fourth level. It's the king versus his enemies. The king is Bina and the enemies are Chachma. Then it's the Zvuv and the Akabish, the spider and the fly. The fly is Bina and the spider is Chachma. Then it's the king being chased by the soldiers of Chachma who come out of the diamond, which is the king again, which is Bina, being chased by Chachma. And then over here we see a fourth iteration of this battle, which is this Har, which identifies as the king, which is on the side of Bina, versus all of the enemies of the Har who are coming to swallow it, which are going to be in the element of Bina. What is going on here? What's this Har? What is this identification of the Har with the Melech? Now, like we've said, b'siyata d'shmaya, like we've said, the fundamental nature of Bina is that it wants to go down into the chitzonius of Malchus. Unlike Chachma, which doesn't want to descend down into the chitzonius of Malchus, it only wants to engage with the pnimius of Malchus. Pnimius of Malchus is the Yetzer HaTov. The Yetzer HaTov is where all things are clarified, all things are good. The tzaddikim of Chachma, the Akabish, does not want to deal with the Yetzer HaRah. Just like the Shpaler Zayda didn't want to deal with the Yetzer HaRah, they want to get rid of the Yetzer HaRah in Gansen. They want to live in a perspective of Nisim and Chachma legamre. Bina, on the other hand, the Zvuv, which represents the Yetzer HaRah, is the Avodah of Iskafia and Ishafcha, of transforming and reversing the potency of the Yetzer HaRah and being mahapeched into a Malach Tov, being mahapech, the Tov, to a Tov Ma'od, the intensification and the renewal of strength that comes about by way of the frictional motion at play in the differential dynamics of the Yetzer HaRah allows for Tov to magnify itself even more. Bina wants to go down into the Yetzer HaRah. Bina understands that Barasi Yetzer HaRah, Barasi Torah Tavlin, that the Iker Zach is the Zichuch of the Yetzer HaRah. Now, the Yetzer HaRah is what Bina wants to conquer. Bina wants to conquer the Yetzer HaRah. Bina doesn't want to break the Yetzer HaRah. Bina understands that it can't overcome the Yetzer HaRah. Bina is the Yetzer HaRah. In comparison to Chachma, Bina is the Yetzer HaRah, it's constriction. Bina knows better than to try and destroy the Yetzer HaRah, because to try and destroy the Yetzer HaRah is to miss the point of what the Yetzer HaRah is. The Yetzer HaRah is a fundamental messenger in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals the purpose of all of existence, for us to overcome it by way of transforming the concealment into illumination. One who conceives of themselves as capable of destroying the Yetzer HaRah has missed out on the nature of the Yetzer HaRah. They've severed it away from the realm of spirituality, and they've divested it of its significance, and they've made it into an enemy. If we go head to head with the Yetzer HaRah thinking we can destroy it, we're always going to lose, because the Yetzer HaRah is part and parcel of the fundamental unity. It's called the Sitra Achra. It's called the other side of the full picture. And therefore, Bina knows better. Bina knows I'm imperfect, and the fundamental reality of my imperfection is that there's always going to be an element of a Yetzer, and there's always going to be an element of trying to overcome whatever the process is. And the more and more I grow, the higher and higher the Yetzer Hara gets. Bina is not trying to destroy the Yetzer Hara. It wants to work with the Yetzer Hara. It wants to force the Yetzer Hara into the dance. It wants to fight and wrestle with the Yetzer Hara, like Yaakov Avinu wrestles and learns the secret of the Yetzer Hara. The tzaddikim of Chochmah, the Akabish, cannot tolerate the Yetzer Hara. It's afraid of the Yetzer Hara. It's afraid of diffusion, it's afraid of separation, it's afraid of concealment, it's afraid of all of the death-bringing nature of what the depths of depravity of the Yetzer Hara represents. And so over here, there's a very, very profound thing taking place. The secret of Bina's victory over Chachma, in the sense that it's going to reveal something deeper, is the same secret as the Yetzer Hara's perpetuality, even after we try and overcome it, because the Yetzer Hara is not something that can be overcome. It's something that has to ultimately be integrated and revealed to be a fundamental engine at the source of the principles of unity. So Bina knows the necessity of awakening that Yetzer Hara and re-including it into the Chadvasa D'Shmaisa to awaken a yearning for more and more Kinas Chachma, Kinas Seifrim Tarbe Chachma. Chachma is terrified of the Yetzer Hara. So Chazal tell us something incredible. Chazal tell us that in the future, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes to shech the Yetzer Hara, and shechting doesn't mean killing, shechting means transforming and being machshir it so that it could be something that's utilized and digested in the right way. Then in the future, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to shech the Yetzer Hara, and the Rishonim are going to come along, and they're going to cry, and they're going to say, there was such a thin line of nothingness, and I couldn't overcome it. And what are the tzaddikim going to say? The tzaddikim are going to say, Nid Malhem Kahar, it's going to appear in their imagination, and since a mountain, it's a har gavoa. And they're going to cry, and they're going to say, Rabbeinu Shlalem, you've given us the capacity to overcome the Yetzer Hara. Look at the strength you've given us. So Bina is screaming. Bina is screaming. The king is screaming. And what does he wake up? He wakes up the har gavoa. He wakes up the Yetzer Hara. The har gavoa is the Yetzer Hara, the shorish of Bina. He awakens that quality within Metzias, which is that drive for moreness, that drive that seeks to exceed its confines, and which, without the proper refinement, can become a very destructive thing. And the Har Gavoa wakes up and he says, who's screaming? Who's woken me up? I haven't been woken up for so long. Why? Because the Yetzer Hara is not afraid when we name it. When we name the Yetzer Hara, Chazal gave 7 names for the Yetzer Hara. They called it this and that and this and that. All of the expressions of what the Yetzer Hara does to us, to identify the Yetzer Hara with eating or this or that or the other thing, we're missing the point of the shorish of the Yetzer. Those are all symptoms of the Yetzer. Those are all outgrowths of the inner quality of the Yetzer Hara, but they're not the essence of the Yetzer itself. Those are all 7 names of expression, just like there's 7 midos that don't represent the essential thing. So anytime we are able to give a non-essential name to the Yetzer Hara, the Yetzer Hara is not so afraid. It can go to sleep because it knows that human beings have not yet understood the true purpose of the Yetzer Hara, which is that I must be transformed and re-included into the circle of unity to elevate Bina back into Chachma to reveal the lights of Keser. And as long as we think we can capture the Yetzer Hara by simply identifying it as this, that, or the other thing, it's like playing a whack-a-mole, havdil, that I take it away from this place and it pops out in another place. So the Yetzer Hara is never afraid of us naming it or trying to tame it, because it understands that our attempt to domesticate the Yetzer Hara, the attempt to kill the Yetzer Hara, is a false attempt. We're not going to be victorious. And anytime we think we've named it, in truth, we've only picked up a small piece of it and we begin to be too focused on it. So the Yetzer Hara, the Har Gavoa, has been asleep for a long time because there's no tzaddik who has come to understand the shayrish of the Yetzer Hara. Most tzaddikim are afraid of the Yetzer Hara. Most tzaddikim are naming the Yetzer Hara in one way or another, but nobody has named the essential quality of the Yetzer Hara. It's been asleep for a long time. Implication is that there was once a time when it was woken up. When was it woken up? Perhaps we can say it was woken up by Yaakov Avinu, that when he engaged with the Saro Shel Esav, Yaakov Avinu was the one who says, what is your name? Give me the essence of the Yetzer Hara. It's time to transform the Malach HaRah and force it to say Amen and force it to give us brachos, because the sharish of the Tzimtzum is revealed in Nishmas Yisrael and the Yesh Reish Lamed Aleph Sha'arim, and the sharish of the Bria. And at that point, so the Malach HaMavos, the Yetzer Hara, Saro Shel Esav says, Lamazet Tishal Shmi. It's not time yet. It's not time yet. It's not time to reveal the essential name. It's not time to reveal the essential name. And therefore, the Yetzer Hara was able to go to sleep because it understood that no tzaddik was going to come along until Rabbi Nachman comes along. And Rabbi Nachman says, and this is a story that is centered around this teaching, he says that Chazal gave 7 names to the Yetzer Hara, but I want to give an 8th name, which I believe is the essential name, which is Kayach HaMedama, the potency of imagination, the power of imagination. And when Rabbi Nachman comes along, when this story of Bina, this king who is screaming and is protecting himself and understanding the need for Bina to be a fundamental part and parcel of Avodas Hashem because it's rooted in the Tzimtzum, so a tzaddik like this comes down and he starts crying out the name of the Yetzer Hara. And the Yetzer Hara suddenly wakes up. The Yetzer Hara says, "Oh my gosh, who's this tzaddik who's come along and knows my name? He knows that I'm the Koyach HaMadama. He knows that the true nature of the Yetzer Hara is just the drive of creativity, is the capacity to imagine things in a different way. As Rabbeinu tells us that the way that the Yetzer operates in its negativity is like this fiendish person who's running around in the shuk, clasping his hands and making every person imagine that he has exactly what they need. But suddenly, when they open the hands, it's revealed that there's absolutely nothing. It's a play of imaginary symbols that mean nothing but the object, petit a, which is perpetually concealed from us. The shirish of the Yetzer in its negative form is Koyach HaMadama in the wrong way. But when tzaddik like Rabbi Nachman comes down and he identifies that the way that we're going to transform the Yetzer, chitzonius of Malchus, through Bina, is by understanding the utilization and the role of imagination within Avodas Hashem, so then the Yetzer suddenly wakes up. Because now he says, who is it that understands my shirish? And the Yetzer Hara again is reflective of the Zvuv, it's reflective of the king, it's reflective of Bina. It's that concealment. Bina is the Yetzer Hara in relationship to Chachma. And the Yetzer is saying, you know what, king? I'm Bina also, and there have been people who have been trying to kill me as well, because Chachma, the tzaddikim of Chachma, keep thinking that they can slaughter the Yetzer Hara entirely, because instead of dealing with it, they want to ignore it. And I'm not afraid of any of those people. Those are my sonim, but I'm also protected by something. What am I protected by? The same type of page, meaning to say that Tzimtzum is the thing that protects the necessity of the Yetzer Hara, because the Yetzer Hara is what reveals the perpetual ascendancy of the human experience of Kedushasi Lamala Mikdusha Seichem, of the protection of Bina by way of that page, which is the Tzimtzum Hashorashi, which is the Tzimtzum of Mahari Sarug and the Olam HaMalbush. And so the Yetzer Hara is saying, I'm also protected. The necessity of the Yetzer Hara is revealed specifically from the perspective of Bina, where there's a reintroduction of the necessity of imagination. And he's saying they're coming to kill me also. They want to do the same thing that they want to do to you. Just like the spider wants to kill the fly, so too those soldiers want to kill you. So too do these enemies want to swallow me up, just as the enemies of the king wanted to to prevent Rosh Hashanah from happening. And the HaRah Gavoa, the Yetzer Hara, who's saying, somebody who understands the shirish and the tachlis of the Yetzer Hara, someone who understands that it can't be defeated, it can only be revealed to be a potent tool in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's arsenal for us. Only a person like that has the ability of transforming the Yetzer Hara and being mamtik all of the dinim, transforming that katnis or with an ayin into a katnis or with an aleph, transforming the chashmal, transforming the das tachton into a place of das elyon. And so the mountain says to the king in the dream, "V'hara lo shasaviv hahar oimdim alafim v'ruvavos soinim v'oisim suudos v'smechim v'klei zemer mezamrim v'hasimcha hi she'eza kasmehem cheshev echad u'ba'al eza chochma ichla alois alahar." So what's happening? The king is now being shown this vision by the mountain. The mountain wants to identify itself with the king, which is the element of Bina, which is the element of Chitzonis and Malchus, which is the element of the fly, which is the element of the Yerida from Chachma down into concealment to reveal the profound lights and illumination that comes about specifically by way of the Yetzer Hara. And so the mountain is showing the king that he too is being attacked. Who is he being attacked by? He's being attacked by these soldiers who all surround the mountain. They all surround the mountain, trying to create some tachbula to conquer the mountain, to overcome the Yetzer Hara, to be sholit on the Yetzer Hara. And they're all waiting, uva al eza chachma, meaning they're trying to use their chachma, like the akabish, like that shpalu zayda mahalach, which is how do I undo the Yetzer Hara? How do I get rid of the Yetzer Hara? And there's an amazing thing here, meaning no tzaddik is going to come and say there's no need for bina. Everybody knows that there's a need for bina, but the tzaddikim of chachma sometimes are afraid to go down fully into the actual bina, which is the recognition of perpetual lack, and they imagine as if they've experienced bina. Bina is simcha, bina is music, bina is the emergence. So what's happening here is anytime these anshi chachma think that they have this new chachma that's going to enable them to nullify the Yetzer Hara completely, so then they also think that they've received bina as well. So they're eating and they're drinking and they're playing music, which is all a bina orientation, thinking that we're the ones who know how to include bina. Don't tell us how to go down into bia. We can have bina over here. And they're singing and they're dancing, meaning they think that they have their bina, and then it's because they think they have a chachma of how to destroy the Yetzer Hara. La alois el hahar, Rosh Tevos Leah, meaning to conquer those moichin of Leah, to conquer that territory of bina. Va'azay oisim simcha gedoyle v'sudo mizamrim v'chule. And then they're singing and dancing with this misappropriation of Bina. They think they know what Bina is, says the mountain to the king. They think they understand what it means to descend down. Instead, they're just feeding themselves. V'chein kol kas v'kas me'am. Each and every one of these enemies, each and every one of these anshe chachma, each and every one of these men of the spider, each and every one of those enemies of the king, each and every one of those elements of chachma that wants to swallow up the potency of bina, they think that they've been able to be victorious over it. But this daf, with all of these rules and regulations, that min hastam is Klal Yisrael, which is the shayrish ha'elyon of the tzimtzum. Klal Yisrael is the tzimtzum. Yesh reish lamed aleph. There are 231 gates. Those osios. Klal Yisrael is the perpetual resistance that prevents existence from evaporating back into absolute nothingness. It's the tzimtzum. We are the tzimtzum. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to reveal himself within our minds and within our hearts. If it were not for Nishmas Yisrael, there would be nothing holding that infinite light down from rescinding back up to its original source, thereby negating all of existence in its root immediately. The fundamental knot that ties existence into being is the persistence of Nishmas Yisrael. Hashem oiz la'amu yitain, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given a koach, the Klal Yisrael, koach of Gevura, that it continues to exist even after the annihilation of the revelation of Chachma, because we understand the secret of Kedusha Sedem Alam Kedusha Seichem, and that the Yetzer is always perpetually telling us to move upwards and upwards, and that we're still a Bal Chisar. So they keep thinking that they can overcome the Yetzer, but there's a daf, there's a tzimtzum that's continuously protecting me. There's a tzimtzum that's continually protecting me, says the mountain. Let's go weiter. It gets crazy. Uberosha HaRah neser. But what the king recognizes is that at the top of this mountain that the men of Chachma want to conquer. They want to conquer the Yetzer just as the men wanted to conquer the king because he was going to misuse the crown of Keser because they didn't know how the secret of Bina could perpetuate more revelation, just as the spider wanted to swallow the fly, and just as those enemies of the king wanted to prevent the Kibbutz Hagadol of Rosh Hashanah, which is the Zichuch of Chitzonius and Malchus, as it's Mushrash and Bina itself, which is Megadol light of Pnimius Chachma, Pnimius Atik, and the secret of Malchus Hagnuza Barad Law. And he notices that there's a neser, there's a tablet, there's some sort of stone slab sitting on top of the mountain. This neser, this nesira, is exactly what's happening in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippurim, the time where the machlokas of the Shpaluzed and Rabbi Nachman began. That place where there's a nesira, where Malchus is severed away from its dependent relationship with Zer Anpin, and there's a descent into the constriction and the Terdema and the Targum and the darkness and the Choshech and the confusion and the bilbul of Bina as it descends down into that nether territory. And it's specifically there where the illumination of Bina is going to come out with its most intensity. The fact that the Nasira is going to be at the top of the mountain is revelatory of the fact that the Chachamim can never overcome the Yetzer because the Yetzer is rooted in separation, and separation is a fundamental necessity in any coupling, in any processing, in any yichudim that are eventually going to take shape. There's a prior Nasira to it. And so there's something that they wanted to conquer at the top of the mountain. The Chachamim, those who wanted to negate the descent into concealment, wanted to swallow up the Neser. But the thing that prevented them, the thing that foiled that plot is the persistent remaining nature of a Nasira. A Nasira. There needs to be a Nasira, a severing for the sake of a furthering of revelation. And that's the profound light that is taking place over here. And on top of the mountain, protecting the mountain, on this tablet was written and engraved all of the Hanhagos and the Midos of the nation whose page was protecting the mountain and protecting the king, meaning that thing, that mesach, that simsim, which was protecting Bina itself. But because the mountain was so high, because the Yetzer was so high, because that church of Bina was so high, those men of Chachma couldn't ascend upwards. Lekroyas Aksav, again, Rosh Tevos Leah. They couldn't understand the nature of Leah. They couldn't understand the nature of Luach Libecha, of the fact that there's a Yetzer. Rak lamata haya tabletza, but only on the bottom there was a tablet, there was an illumination of it. B'hayukasav sham, and what was written on that sign, that these men of Chachma tried to overcome this har to show that Chachma could swallow up Bina. What was written on that, hayakasav sham shemishi yesh la hashinayim yachol la'alois hasahar. That all of those men of Chachma who want so desperately to swallow up Bina and negate the necessity of the Yetzer and negate the necessity of Dimyon, they only want to live in the clarity of Chachma. The rule is that if you think you can overcome the Yetzer, then the only way that you can ascend this har, la'aloi salahar, is Rosh Tevos Leah, is if you have all of your teeth. Now, what's the inyan here? The inyan here is that the fundamental reality is that the goal of the Yerida from Bina out of Chachma is so that Bina, like we've said over and over, can reveal the true potency of Chachma, that it can express itself down below within the nether territories of constriction, and then ascend upwards again into the territory of Keser to reveal Aniva Ayin B'Vasachas. The purpose is ultimately Chachma. The goal is never to stay stuck in Bina. The goal is to go down from Chachma into Bina, then back up into Chachma, into Pnimius Chachma, experience the Bittul Muchletes that comes about by recognizing that all of the self and all of the strength and all of the effort and all of the processing and all of the imaginings are all rooted in the gifts that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives me or gives each and every person. And then from there, back into Chachma, back to the Pnimius of Atik. Bina understands the mission. Bina understands the mission. It's to go back to Chachma and to reveal Chachma. Chachma also understands the mission. Like we said, that ultimately the Shpalu Zayde and Rabbi Nachman were not in disagreement with one another. And HaRah was that the Shpalu Zayde, who's Chachma, pointed out to Rabbi Nachman that I don't have any teeth. And that Rabbi Nachman, to a certain degree, was meant to be the teeth of the Shpalu Zayde. What are the teeth? The teeth, the 32 teeth, are referred to as the Lamed Beis Nesivos Chachma, the 32 pathways of wisdom. There's many Makoros that point out that the 32 pathways of wisdom correspond to the 32 teeth that we have. And these teeth, the Lamed Beis Nesivos Chachma, are this paradoxical containment of Bina within Chachma. The Lev, Lamed Beis, is already representative of a Bina orientation. And so the number of Lamed Beis Nesivos that are found within Chachma is in fact the emergence of Bina within Chachma. It's the secret of the Havein B'Chachma that eventually expresses itself from within Chachma itself, congeals itself downwards, and lodges itself within Bina as the Chacham B'Bina. So there's the Havein B'Chachma, the potential of the mutation of Bina within the inner recesses of Chachma that awakens itself, descends down, creates this machlokas, only to reveal that within Bina there's also going to be an element of Chachma, and then we could climb back up from Bina into Chachma back into Keser. So the in-between, the memutza had davarim, between Chachma and Bina that reveals the fundamental relationship between the two of them is the Lamed Beis Nesivos Chachma, the potentiation towards Bina from within the womb of Chachma itself, which eventually becomes the remnant of Chachma within Bina itself. And only a person who has the Lamed Beis Nesivos Chachma, only a person who understands what the teeth actually do, that they serve as the processing and the descent away from Chachma into Bina, but for the purpose of eventually ascending upwards, only a person like that can go up the HaRah, because only a person like that who understands the fundamental need of Bina is going to be able to go up the mountain and realize that I can only overcome this shlav of the Yetzer Hara, but there's always going to be a new level of dimyon, as Rabbeinu explains. But someone who doesn't understand the Lamed Beis Nesivos Chachma, someone who thinks that Chachma and Bina are two opposites and that there's not an inter-inclusion between the two of them by way of the secret of Havein B'Chacham B'Chachma B'Bina, so then they lose their teeth and they're not able to go up the mountain. So in order to go up the mountain, in order to be someone who truly understands how to deal with the Yetzer Hara, you have to have the combination of Chachma and Bina. You have to have the Lamed Beis and Nesivos Chachma. You have to understand the relationship between the Shpalu Zayda and Rabbi Nachman. And how Rabbi Nachman was the Bina to the Chachma of the Shpalu Zayda, and that's why the Shpalu Zayda points out that he has no teeth. And Rabbeinu is going to be the teeth. He's going to be the Lamed Beis and Nesivos Chachma. Kavyachol, he's going to be the Histalis of the Bina from within the Chachma that's going to reveal the potency of Pnimius Chachma, Pnimius Atik. So the mountain says that anybody who has all of their teeth is going to be able to ascend and understand the Yetzer Hara. But if you don't have your teeth and you're just a mensch of Chachma and you're afraid of the Yetzer Hara and you want to just kill it off out of fear, so then you're never going to understand. You're never going to be able to go on top of the mountain. Because what HaKadosh Baruch Hu has done is that because you need all of your teeth to go up the mountain, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want the Yetzer Hara to be destroyed. HaKadosh Baruch Hu understands the creation of the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara is Bina. It's the Iker Tachlis. It's the place of the real Birurim. So what HaKadosh Baruch Hu did is Nasan Hashem Yisparach Shegadol Esav B'makom Shetzrichim La'alois Sahar. Again, La'alois Sahar is Leah, and it's also Shetzrichim La'alois Sahar, which is Gematria She'ela, which is the Gematria of Purim, which is the light of Bina. Umisha Balasham, someone who comes and partakes of this grass, this asev that's sitting and surrounding the mountains, hayunoiflim kol shinayim, shein shahayu hoylech beraglav, hein shahayu roichev, hein shahayu hoylech beagala in behemos. Any of these soldiers who wanted to overcome the Yetzer Hara, any of these soldiers of Chachma, the men of the spider, the ones who wanted to conquer Bina and get over the need for the kibbutz hagadol, those enemies of the king who were afraid about the descent into Chachma. So the Yetzer Hara says they're going to think they can come and conquer me, but they can't conquer me without their teeth, because if you don't understand that the Yetzer Hara has to be reincorporated into Kedusha and transformed and refined and elevated and transformed into a new motivating force, and they're just going to try and bludgeon the Yetzer Hara over the head until it gets out of the way, so then that's called repression. That's not an actual victory. And therefore, only those with their teeth, the Lamed Beis and the Sivas Chachma, are going to be the ones who have the ability to go up. And if not, they're going to eat a grass, they're going to eat an Asev, and they're going to lose it. What's Asev? Asev is Oise Shalom Bimraimav, as Rabbeinu says. Rosh Tevos Ose Shalom Bimraimav. Asev is Ayin Beis, which is Chesed, which is the shame of Chachma, and Shin is the gematria of the ribuya, the acharayim of Elokim. So what we have in Asev is the unity of Ayin Beis, which is Chesed, which is Chachma, and the Shin, which is going to be the place of Bina. Only someone who's able to eat and integrate the Oisa Shalom Ramav, the Yichud of the Shpalazed and Rabbi Nachman, the Yichud of Chachma and Bina. Only a person like that is going to be able to ascend on top of the mountain, understand the secret of Bina, Umisha Balasham, and someone who goes there and they'll be able to maintain all their teeth, they'll be able to go up. But most of these people who think they could just conquer Bina completely, they come there, they eat from this grass, they lose their teeth. It's irrespective of whether they're trying to go with their legs to overcome it, which is Chachma in the world of Maisa, on their own, or they're trying to go riding on something, which is going to be Chachma with other people helping them, or if they're going with an Agala and Behemos, or if they're trying all of their Koach to overcome the Yetzer Hara, in the end of the day, they're going to lose their teeth. Hayu noiflin kol hashinayim. So we see here there's the Shir Pashut and all of the different ways of trying to overcome the Yetzer Hara. Shir Pashut, Shir Kafel, Shir Meshulas, and Shir Meruba. Vayimunachim sham chamarim chamarim shel shinayim. Kamo harim harim. And because of this, because of these failed attempts, says the mountain, who's talking to the king as a kindred spirit, the Yetzer Hara understands that it's being protected by the same thing the king is being protected by, which is the secret of Bina, which is the secret of the Shorish Tzimtzum. The Shorish Tzimtzum is what initiates the process and the unfolding of the Yetzer Hara, of the Shorish of Bina. And so says the mountain, because they don't understand this, because Chachma always thinks that it's going to be able to conquer Bina, and they think they have this infantile nature of Bina, which is just celebratory and joy. They haven't understood the value of Bina, which is the possibility of descending down to reveal more and more. And therefore, surrounding this mountain and blocking this mountain from being conquered are piles and piles and piles and piles of teeth, representing the fact that without the Lamed Beis and Sivos Chachma, without understanding the true secret of the connectivity and how Bina is ultimately just the externalization and the turning outwards and the congealment and the calcification of the edge and the malchus of Chachma, so that it can appear as something opposite to Chachma, only to force Chachma to reveal itself with more potency. Only those who understand that have the secret of the Lamed Beis and Sivos Chachma, the secret of understanding the shorish of Bina within Chachma, and how Chachma is going to transplant itself into Bina to reveal the unity of all. And therefore, says the Yetzer Hara, says the Har Gavoa to the king, who's in his dream after having seen the fly being protected by the same thing, and at the Suda, which is the miraculous story of the king who has been victorious, which is the Kibbutz Agadol of Rosh Hashanah. So it's all rooted in the fact that this page is going to protect us. This page protects me. This page ensures that their teeth are going to fall out, because without the proper understanding of the Tzimtzum, then a person is never going to properly understand the fundamental necessity of the role of Bina itself. And we're going to continue, and we're going to see how the story continues to unfold, Be'ezras Hashem.